I'm going to watch the line for the water line, which is right back here. For the SH line, I'm going to watch that for air. So there's no air coming out, so that one's actually primed already. I'm going to switch it to my SH tank. And again, I'm going to watch for air. Now what I might have to do if I get an air pocket in there is I'm going to have to turn this valve back to the garden hose to force the air out, and then I'm going to turn it back to the proportioner. And I might have to do that 2 or 3 times to make sure I get all the air out. What I would recommend doing is when you initially prime this, fill it all with water, prime it, run it down, and then fill all your levels back up. That little bit of water won't hurt in the dilution, but it makes it really easy to prime and play with. All right, so now everything's primed. I got all my air out of the system. Everything's working really good. I'm going to come over here to my proportioner. And the way the proportioner works is you're going to open your water valve all the way. And we have percentage mixes here. And people say like a 1% mix, a 1.5%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, 5.5%. And the positioning of this valve will determine what percentage of bleach it is. It's not the mixture ratio. It's not 2 to 1 or 1 to 1. Because if I go with the water open all the way and the SH open all the way, that's a 50-50 mix of your bleach and water. But that's realistically only a 6% mix because you're starting with 12.5% bleach diluted. So these numbers are actually the concentration of bleach that you're getting to the surface, what percentage of the bleach it is. So we might run a house at, let's say, 3%. So I have my water open all the way, I have my house set at 3%, and I'm going to take my detergent line, and I might set it anywhere, typically it's usually around 3, but depending on what you're using for your surfactant, in this case he's using his precision roof wash additive, you know, he might only be at a 3 because it creates a good amount of suds and has a good cleaning property. If he was using something weaker like a laundry detergent, he might be all the way up at an 8 because he's not getting any benefit out of that because it's really not designed for that type of use. So we're going to set our ratios, and now what's going to happen is when we're drawing through, it's drawing water, bleach, and a little bit of detergent. Now you're not going to see any suds because we just have water in there right now. So you're going to have your concentration for spraying up on your roof. So he's spraying a 3% mix. Now there's the process where he wants to come down. Maybe he wants to go up on a roof, or he wants to change his ratio. It's not strong enough, but he needs to know when that mix changes. And here's the process. What you're going to do is you're going to have your guy change your SH valve to where you want it to be. Let's say he wants to be at a 5% mix. He'll move it up to 5%. And you're going to do what you see right on here where it says marker. I'm going to take my soap valve and I'm going to turn it up. And I'm going to squeeze the trigger for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to turn this back down to whatever ratio you want. Let's say a 3. You're going to spray. What you're going to see is after about 30 to 45 seconds, you're going to see a big glob of soap come out. That's your marker. After that point, you know that everything that's coming out of that line is going to be a 5% mix. Now this ratio is based on 10.5% bleach mix. So if you're using a 12.5%, typically they like to, they call it 12.5%, but it usually is about a 10.5% by the time it gets to the end. All right, so that's this marker. So that allows you to change the mix. Now if I want to go back from I'm up on the roof and I want to go back down to the house and I want to go back down to a 2% mix, I'll do the same process. I'll shoot the trigger, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back to my mix. Again, after about 30 to 45 seconds, my marker will come through. So that's how you work the booster pump with the proportion. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you, I'm going to let the pressure off the line because I have it off right now. And when I disconnect this, I don't want the water spraying all over. So what I'm going to show you how to do is how to hook up the double agent kit, which is the 12-volt system. The way the double agent kit works, you have 2 hoses here. And you see one of them has a garden hose end on it. That's going to end up connecting to the reel here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my inlet hose and I'm going to connect it to the inlet to the pump. I'm going to take the other end. I'm sorry, I got that backwards. I'm confused. Outward in the pump. Outward to the reel. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. So my inlet hose and I'm going to disconnect the proportioner from the booster pump if you want to come over here and look. So I'm going to disconnect the proportioner for the booster pump. I was thinking I had to connect it to there. So I'm going to disconnect the booster pump from the proportioner. I'm going to take my inlet hose and I'm going to connect it directly to the proportioner. Okay? I'm going to make sure that my clamps here are tight so that the air can get out. I'm going to take my outlet. You see we've made some little holes here for the water to run out. I'm going to connect it to the outlet of my 12-volt pump. Now you can do a couple of different ways, and this is the easy way to do this, to prime the proportioner, because you're probably going to have to reprime the proportioner. You'll see, because there's air here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my transfer pump. I'm going to shut all my valves off. I'm going to open up the water, and I want to prime my water valve. So I'm going to turn on the transfer pump, and if you watch this line here, you'll see the air come through. So I'm going to turn on the transfer pump. It's going to start priming. You can see it's sucking into the booster pump, into the 12-volt pump, and now it's going to come out of this hose. So I'm going to watch to make sure I got the air out of the line. All right, so now you see all the air just got out of the line from the proportioner on that. So my next step, I'm going to open my detergent, and I'm going to do the same thing. I got to get the air out of the line right there. So the air just came out. You can see a little bit running through here. Now I'm going to open my SH, and I'm going to do the same thing. You'll see a tiny bit of air coming through. See, there it goes. Okay, so now that's all done. So now I know everything is primed. I'm going to shut these valves back off. I'm going to take this hose here, and I'm just going to run it over the top of the skid here. And on the outlet of on the inlet of the garden hose here, you can see that there is a garden hose fitting. So we can actually just take the 12-volt pump, connect it directly to this garden hose fitting. All right, so this is the booster pump hose and this is the 12-volt hose. I can actually come over here now, and you can see with the same proportioner, I can turn on my transfer pump. I can turn my water up, my SH, and now I'm using the proportioner with the 12-volt system. And you can do the same thing for changing your ratios. Turn your bleach up, do your marker, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. Turn it back. Apparently there's a fire in the neighborhood. So now we're using the 12-volt system to apply with our proportioner. Okay? That's the simplest way. If you want to use it just for transferring, you can put that in whatever tank you want. So that's the transfer pump system. On the booster pump itself here, you're going to see there's a little knob. This is your regulator which sets your pressure. Ideally, you want to have about 1/4 inch of threads exposed, about like that. And that's about the ideal pressure for where you want that set. If it's too far down, you won't get any water and bypass. What you may notice is that this hose right here may go flat. That's okay, that's perfectly normal. When you let off the trigger, if you actually squeeze it, what you'll do is you'll feel the swell a little bit and it recirculates similar to a pressure washer. Now, that being the case, you don't want to set the gun down and walk away for 20 minutes because it's going to superheat this water in here and begin to break down the impellers and the discs that are inside here. So just like a pressure washer, after about a minute or two, you're going to want to squeeze the trigger for about 30 to 45 seconds to bring some fresh, cool water in there to keep this from getting any damage. If you do have to rebuild this, the impeller kit is anywhere from about, I think it's right around $100 to $125 for the impeller kit. Now, at the end of the day, right now we've been running off our SH. At the end of the day, we want to make sure we flush out our proportioner. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this valve right here to water. And what that's going to do, the only thing that changes is your SH valve. Your water is still your water, your bleach is still your bleach. So if I want to use this for rinsing, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to shut this off. I'm going to reconnect the booster pump. And I'm going to show you how we can change this if we want to rinse with the booster pump. So now what's going to happen is we're going to have to actually reprime this booster pump. We're going to disconnect this. We're going to change it right back to the booster pump. We disconnect our garden hose off the reel here. Reconnect our booster pump hose, which is what's nice about the garden hose connector here. It doesn't get rusty and corroded like a regular quick connect. It's really easy to work with. Okay, so we're reconnected. We're going to take our booster pump here. We're going to turn it on. And what we're going to do is we're going to close our detergent valve. We're going to open our water valve and our SH valve. And you see it's kind of weak right now. It's not sucking very good. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to reprime it. There we go. So we reprimed it to get the air out of the system. So now what we're doing is we're actually bringing fresh water in through there. We're sucking water on the water valve and we're sucking water on the SH valve. I've turned my detergent off because when I rinse it, I don't want to keep spraying soap on. This will allow you to rinse. You know, it's pretty windy, but you can see you get some good distance out of it. If I want to rinse with a lot of pressure on the house, I can just turn the valve over to feeding directly from the garden hose, and you'll actually feel the boost in pressure. So we flushed out the proportioner. We're all set. You can actually, if you want to, leave your valves in a set position where you normally would have them. I typically tell people just close them up at the end of the night because then you don't have to worry about any type of backflow issues, even though there are check those on there. So that's how the proportioner works in relation to the booster pump and the transfer pump. Your directional system, it's pretty simple. Pushing the buttons, when you double press buttons, it'll change the pattern and you can see what it's doing there on the screen. Okay, you can go direct traffic left or right. You can direct traffic left. You can make it go both ways. By hitting it double, you can change the pattern. You can change the speed right here. So all the controls are there, and if you want to look at the back, you can actually see how that works on the back. This has a reset breaker on it. This breaker controls the directional lights, the lights for the spotlights, as well as the booster or the RODI booster pump, the transfer pump, and the chemical applicator pump, the precision soft wash power bright applicator pump. That works off this breaker here, which is these two pumps right here. So you have two breakers for that. If you look at the back lights, you can kind of see when I hit the button how it changes the pattern. Depending on what you want to do, if I want to go right, I can change the speed fast, or I can go slow. All right, RODI system. You have several valves on the RODI system, and the way it works is the water comes in from the garden hose, and let's go over to the garden hose first, and I'll show you how to power this particular system. So what you're going to do with this, number one, you got to make sure that your main water valve is to the proportioner, because that basically shuts off the water. If it's to the tank, the only way you're going to make your pure water system work is if the water tank is completely full. So we're going to turn it to the proportioner, to the booster pump, which allows us to basically shut that water off. Then on the side over here, we have another valve. This is the valve that actually feeds the RODI system. I'm going to open that up. And what you're going to actually see, we come around the back here, you'll actually see it start to dump water out of the RO dump. Now you can connect the hose on there to run it to the ground or whatever, and that's the dump valve for the RO. We have our DI at the bottom and the RO. Right now those are actually shut off, that's why nothing's coming out. So the water comes in, goes through a carbon filter, comes out of the carbon filter, runs into the RODI, or the RO filters, which there's two of them in here, comes out of there. What's going to happen is it's an inner filter and an outer filter. The water comes through and forces the good water through the filter that can continue on to be used as pure water or go into the DI, and the bad water goes out and dumps out. That's the less pure water. On this system here, you're going to see we have a TDS meter. So what I can do is turn it on. Now in is your RO. So right now, what's coming out of the RO filter is a 9 parts per million. That's actually considered spot free. Anything under 14 parts per million would be considered spot free, which would allow you to do that. If you want to process additional water, you're not getting enough water out of what you need. This pump actually boosts it, and you'll see the